Good morning, class. Welcome back to online biology classes. We are on chapter 2, the flower. The previous topic that we have discussed was pollination and types of flowers. Today's topic is fertilization. So let us begin. What is fertilization? It is the second stage after pollination in reproduction of plants, that is called fertilization. The process of fertilization involves fusion of male and female reproductive cells, which are also called as gametes. So what happens in fertilization? First of all, as I have already told you, the reproduction in plants take place in two stages. The first stage is pollination and the second stage is fertilization. The first stage, pollination, we have already discussed in the previous lesson. Today we are going to study the second stage, that is fertilization. So what happens in fertilization? In this process, the male and female reproductive cells, which are also called as gametes, they fuse together. They join together and a fertilized egg cell is formed, which is called as zygote. So what happens in the process of fertilization? The steps involved in the process of fertilization. As the pollen grain reaches the stigma, it starts forming a tube which enters into the stigma and lengthen to travel downwards towards ovary through style. So first step in fertilization is, as the pollen grain from anther reaches to the stigma, what happens? A tube is formed. This is a long tube which starts from stigma and ends in the ovary. Second step, this tube containing pollen grain in it is called pollen tube. What is the name of the tube which is formed, which is starting from stigma and ending in the ovary? The name of the tube is pollen tube. Why pollen tube? Because this tube is carrying pollen grain in it. Therefore, the name is pollen tube. Third step, the pollen tube enters the ovary and penetrate or move inside the ovules. Now, this pollen tube will enter into the ovary where ovules are present. What are ovules? They are the egg cells, the female egg cells. So the pollen tube which is carrying pollen grain in it, the pollen grain will come down slowly and it will enter into the ovary and the pollen grain will fuse with the ovule. Pollen grain is the male cell and ovule is the female cell. In the ovary, what is ovary? It is the place where ovules are there. In the ovary, the pollen tube releases the male reproductive cells or male gamete, which fuses with the female reproductive cells or female gamete present in the ovum of the ovule. Now what will happen in the next step? As the pollen tube will move inside the ovules, it will release the male gamete or male reproductive cell that are released from pollen grain, and these male gamete or male reproductive cell will fuse or merge or attach with the female reproductive cell inside the ovary. What is female reproductive cell over here? Ovule, the egg cell. Then the union of male and female reproductive cell results in the formation of fertilized female reproductive cell called zygote, which develop into seed. After the male and female reproductive cells will fuse together, they will form a zygote. What is a zygote? It is a fertilized female reproductive cell. And this zygote, it is, you can also say it is a single cell which will be formed after the fertilization process or after the fusion of male and female gamete, and this zygote will develop into a seed. Now you can see the picture showing the process of fertilization. First of all, the anther are releasing the pollen grain on the top. Now what will happen? The pollen grain will attach on the stigma. Then the pollen tube, you can see the labeling, pollen tube will be formed. It is a very long tube, yellow color tube, which is starting from the stigma and entering inside the ovary. You can see ovary is the swollen part which is having ovule inside it. What is ovule? The egg, small egg cell it is containing, and the male and female gametes will fuse together. And in the next picture you can see, after fertilization a zygote will be formed. This zygote will make a simple fruit, and fruit will be having seed inside it. When this seed will be sown in the soil, the germination of seed will start, and the seed will give rise to a mature plant, and again plant will bear flower, and in the flower the same process of fertilization will take place. So this is a complete cycle or process of fertilization. Fertilization cycle, let us see what all happens step by step. The fusion of male and female reproductive cell form a zygote. Second, what is zygote? Single fertilized cell is formed. After fertilization a zygote is formed. Then this zygote forms a fruit. Then fruit contains seed, and seed germinate to give rise to baby plant, and in the end the baby plant turn into a mature plant, and the process starts again. So that is all for today's class. Thank you students. Chapter will be continued. Revise the previous topics, clear your doubts in the comment section, and have a good day.